it's also important. That's a big part of being a grown up and being a mature adult, because it's possible for you to be an adult but to not be mature. Being mature is realizing that you can't take everyone with you in every season that you're going to go into. It doesn't make the other person bad or evil that I am choosing to allow certain things to continue, or that I'm expecting them to read my mind. It just means I am struggling with valuing myself quite a lot. And so, because I'm struggling with a sense of self, I'm struggling with setting the tone and setting boundaries for how I want to be loved and what I will and will not tolerate. In healthy relationships, you will not be gaslit or manipulated or given the cold shoulder just because you are asserting your boundaries. In healthy, loving, and functional relationships, the love is not revoked just because you are in the middle of an argument or when you are standing up for yourself. Don't be the person that is always the victim and is always the one having people walk away and then wanting to blame them. Then you're the common denominator, not everyone you're pointing fingers at. Hi, community. Welcome back to A Cupful. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you being here. How are you doing? Are we all good? Are we all taking care of ourselves? I really, really hope that we are. I, for one, am making sure that I'm taking things as slowly as I can at a pace that works for me. Considering that we are at the end of the year, we are in November. It's November. Isn't that wild? It's absolutely wild that it's November. I was telling my mom the other day that it was literally just January. And I know this is a South African thing, it's a very South African thing to say, but it does feel that way, that it was literally just Jan, and now we are in November, and it's going to be December soon. December is my favorite month because it's my birthday, because it's just a generally jolly time in the country. You know, it's also nice and warm, and you can feel that it's just a different season and it's just a different time, and everyone's just in like very relaxed holiday regroup mode. So I'm very much looking forward to December. I'm looking forward to preparing myself sufficiently for 2024, because it's the truth that time does fly, and we just need to make sure that we are preparing ourselves and are mindful that as much as it is a good time, it's summer, it's time to have fun, it's time to relax, it's time to reflect on the year and have an amazing time. It's also time to prepare for the coming year. Don't find yourself in 2024 and then you just like don't have a plan, and you don't have a vision board, or you don't have goals that you've put down that you want to work on. You don't have some prayers that you are praying and petitions that you're putting forward to God in preparation for the new year. So just make sure that you are gearing up. You know, in order for something to be successful, you do need to make sure that you're preparing sufficiently beforehand, like you would study for a test beforehand, like you would submit an assignment on time, like you pay your rent on time. Yeah, you get the gist of what I'm saying. So yes, just make sure that you are well prepared and obviously have a good time. It's the end of the year. It's time to just relax for a little bit. It's time to enjoy ourselves and give ourselves a good old break. Yes. Yeah, and also don't forget that you don't have to be finishing strong. Don't rush yourself to do the things that you don't have the capacity to do, but make sure that you do finish well according to your own standards, and make sure that you're getting rest in between. Okay? So in this week's episode, I really, really wanted to talk about something I have had a lot of experience with over the last few months, pretty much over the last year, acknowledging the role I have played in quite a number of things, but particularly in the relationships that I've had to let go of, the relationship that I previously had with myself as well, and just really coming to terms with the fact that I have made some really bad calls of judgment, and I've ignored red flags from myself, from other people. I have wanted to fix things that are irreparably broken, And yeah, just like acknowledging that I have played a role in where my relationships ended up with some people, and in some cases them not ending very well. So yeah, welcome to welcome to a little bit about my business. Welcome to an episode where I'm going to be getting very, very vulnerable. Obviously, as much as I feel comfortable to get vulnerable. But yeah, 2023 has been a long year of loss for me, particularly when it comes to different kinds of relationships. And in that, I've had to take responsibility, grieve, figure out how to show myself grace, work on forgiving myself and others, and then giving myself the space to reflect as honestly as I possibly could, you know? I used to find it easy to just point fingers at others and be okay with that. But growing up and really facing reality and being more intentional about working on myself and healing and all that good stuff, it has pushed me in a direction to really get wiser about certain things and to navigate them better, like relationships ending. It has shown me that for me to show up better and be better in the coming relationships I am going to cultivate and that the Lord is going to bless me with, whether romantic or friendship, I need to learn to acknowledge the part I've played in the state of that relationship or in how it ended. Being an adult slash a grown woman and really settling in this state of being is also allowing me an opportunity to be a lot more flexible in accepting that because of changes in seasons, some relationships need to come to an end. So there's no bad blood, nothing happened, there wasn't a falling out, but sometimes you and your friend or you and your partner are not in the same place growth wise, or other things are becoming more and more of a priority, and that relationship will just no longer have space to exist healthily anymore. Circumstances change, and that really is okay. After mourning that loss, it's so important to work towards embracing the change. And I speak from experience in that I've had some relationships this year that have had to end simply because of it just was not working anymore, or it was just headed for a serious crash and burn if the other person wasn't going to be honest about the state of the relationship, or if I wasn't going to be honest about the state of the relationship. Either way, if there wasn't going to be any honesty, it would have ended on a very bitter note. So it's also important. That's a big part of being a grown up and being a mature adult, because it's possible for you to be an adult but to not be mature. Being mature is realizing that you can't take everyone with you in every season that you're going to go into. Of course, there are people that will go through your entire life with you and will be with you until you are old and gray. But there are also some people that are just meant to be there for a season. And I really, 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 really battled with that, because I'm the kind of person that believes that once we're together, romantic or platonic, we need to ride or die for each other, and it needs to just stay that way. But I'm learning to understand that there's nothing wrong with relationships coming to an end. There is nothing wrong with needing to walk away from a person. It's going to hurt. It's going to break your heart. Oh my goodness. I was heartbroken. I was very, very heartbroken in 2023. I am still grieving and dealing with and healing through uh, having to release relationships this year, right? But I also am seeing, or I also can see that if I had held on any longer, or if I had wanted this relationship to keep going, these relationships to keep going, I would have been miserable. The other person would have been miserable. It just would have been very miserable, and there would have probably been a ton of resentment just holding the relationship together, being the glue. I don't know if resentment can even be the glue, but anyways, yeah. I I just I've said to myself that I don't want that for myself. I don't want to stick with people because I've known you for so long, or because you're my family member. If it's not healthy, then it's not. And if it's not working anymore, then it's not. And if we're not growing in the same direction, or we aren't able to pour into the relationship as we should, we're just in a place where we've outgrown one another, then that's just how it is. And as a person who also struggles with letting go, oh, whoa, it's been difficult. It's been so hard. But again, these are the things that we learn as we go. These are the things that we see the positive side of as we experience them. It can be a very good thing to no longer be with someone, to no longer have someone in your life. It can be an opportunity to give you a chance to grow on your own. It can be something that will give you perspective. It can even be something that will show you that you have many, many unhealed wounds that you need to work on. So yeah, sometimes being outside of the relationship can really help you and give you perspective and help you reflect better. Yeah, another realization I've made is when a relationship ends, not because of a change in season, but because it had a poor, perhaps non-existent foundation, or you may have felt like your needs weren't being met, or you felt like you were always accommodating them and they were never accommodating you, it really becomes easy to blame the other person. Being the victim. I've been there, I've done that. I used to do it a lot, actually, to make myself feel better. Blaming the other person for constantly neglecting my needs, but always expecting me to accommodate theirs. Something like that. Saying they were emotionally unavailable and mocking them for it. Calling them avoidant, immature, selfish, and never deserving of me, anyways. Yeah. Holding a lot against them and reminding myself of times when I felt unfairly treated and not handled with much care. I would just rile myself up, and this is something that I used to do quite a lot in the past. And even at the beginning of the losses I experienced this year, I guess it was so that I could justify my anger towards those people and then put myself in a position where I was the good person and they were the bad, where I was the victim. But you know what I recently realized? It all comes down to me. What I allow to continue will continue. What I make space for will have space. What I entertain, it says a lot about me. It says a lot about the relationship that I have with myself. It says a lot about me in the fact that I'm not questioning why am I still here and why don't I think I deserve better. It doesn't make the other person bad or evil that I am choosing to allow certain things to continue or that I'm expecting them to read my mind. It just means I am struggling with valuing myself quite a lot. And so, because I'm struggling with a sense of self, I'm struggling with setting the tone and setting boundaries for how I want to be loved and what I will and will not tolerate. You get that? You get that? You need to understand that if you are giving something space, if you are giving something airtime, room in your life, that's not you being forced. You are doing it off of your own will. You are doing it based on whatever's going on inside of you. And that's where we all need to start, especially if we are often the victims. Especially if when people leave in our lives or people choose to walk away from us, it's always them and never us. Anytime anyone that I have befriended or been romantically involved with has come into my life, it is because I let them. No one has ever forced me to be in a friendship or romantic relationship with them. And that's also something else that you need to realize, that you were not forced into that friendship. You were not forced into that romantic relationship. You came together as two individuals and you ignored red flags, just like I've ignored red flags in the past. You did not create firm boundaries with that person or those people, just like I have done in the past. And I think many of us, if you have always struggled with perhaps putting up boundaries or you have always overlooked red flags, then you would understand what I'm talking about. You have to take responsibility and you have to acknowledge that you were the one that was in the driver's seat, that you could have stood up and said, I don't like this, I don't appreciate this, this is just like, you're not my type of vibe, you're not my cup of tea, so this is not going to work. You know, we do all have the space and the freedom. If we're keeping it a buck, if we're being very honest, we do all have the space and the freedom to say, this is actually not going to work for me. But because of the place that you are in with yourself, perhaps you are a people pleaser, or perhaps you just never want to be alone, and so you will take anything and anyone that comes your way. You are most likely not going to, you're not going to say, this is a red flag and I don't want this, or this is making me uncomfortable and I don't want this. Listen, I'm like, I really understand, and I promise I am coming from a place of understanding that it is not easy to open up, be vulnerable, be honest when perhaps you have spent all your life fighting to be loved and cared for and seen and heard. Perhaps you have spent your life in a position where you have always been carrying other people's feelings and emotions, and you have never had the room to speak on how you are feeling. And now, when you go into relationships as an adult, how else are you going to show up? How else are you going to show up if not in those very same patterns that you grew up in, or that you grew up seeing, or that you were socialized into? Many people grew up in homes where they couldn't speak their mind, where there weren't any boundaries, where you were a child that was growing up around parents whose emotions you needed to nurse, where if you said anything, you anything about you being bothered by something, or you being uncomfortable or something by something, or you trying to set up boundaries, you were immediately shut down. And of course you're going to be closed off, and of course you are then going to have multiple wounds. But then you need to work on them, you need to work on healing them, you need to work on disinfecting them, and just like, also just firstly being honest and acknowledging that this is actually not a healthy way to be going about things. This is not a healthy way to build relationships. Relationships are supposed to be a space where I can grow and the other person can grow, where I shouldn't feel like I need to be a peacekeeper, where I should be able to speak my mind and they should be able to respect my perspectives, where I shouldn't have to fight for a person to love me, where, it's not volatile and I'm not throwing things at the other person, or the other person is not throwing things at me, and it's not a vengeful, hurtful space, but instead it's peaceful, and there's love and there's kindness and there's compassion, and there's a commitment, a consistent commitment. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, one thing that happened for me when I began to acknowledge that there was a lot going on inside of me that I hadn't acknowledged, that there were wounds that I needed to work on, it started to make a lot of sense why the relationships that I had formed had taken shape the way that they had, and how I had contributed to them taking shape. And in no way was I torturing myself. Okay, no, let me be honest, I'm lying. I did torture myself in the beginning of realizing that I was showing up in brokenness. I tortured myself quite a lot. And then I started to realize, especially after having conversations with my mom, with my friends, that it's okay. It's really fine. I don't need to be mean to myself. If anything, I need to be really kind to myself and show myself grace. I remember I was having a conversation with a friend, and she said to me, you need to learn to show yourself some grace. Be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself. You are working through some tough stuff. You are trying to learn new ways. And that within itself takes courage. So don't forget to be kind to yourself, and remember that you're very courageous for taking a step as big and as bold as wanting to work on yourself and wanting more for yourself, wanting more than what you were socialized into, how you were raised, what you were taught, wanting more than what you've always done. You know how much courage it takes to say to yourself, I'm moving away from this toxicity, I'm moving away from this, and I'm going to figure out a new way because I want a better life for myself. I want more for myself. Okay? And I'm also saying all of this to say, just make sure that you're not villainizing people unnecessarily, that you're not putting loads of blame on people that you shouldn't be, right? In relationships, I think that it's important to acknowledge, and in order for you to walk away from them peacefully, you should be able to say, I have shared many beautiful memories and moments with these people, that I previously considered a friend or friends or romantic partner. Hopefully, right, there were many beautiful memories that you can reflect on, and that you can say, this was great, but this was not healthy, this was bad, and I don't want to repeat it again. You know, I don't want to never not address things again. I want to show up as my truest self. I don't want to hide parts of me because of I'm afraid that people will walk away from me, right? So yeah, yeah, I for one realized that something like the lack of communication, something else I really struggled with. I've struggled with communication a lot, and when I say communication, I'm talking about the hard feelings, the sad feelings, the bad feelings, the heavy feelings. Um, and I kind of would always say, in my head, I'd be like, if I wouldn't do that to a person, why would they do that to me? Again, valid, but but it's also very unreasonable for me to say, if I wouldn't take your lipstick, you shouldn't take my lipstick either, right? And I'm saying this to myself. I need to make you aware that I didn't like that. Because again, guys, it's so important to remember that we come together, especially with romantic relationships, heck, even friendships. As someone in their late 20s who is still making friends right now, I'm coming together with people that I did not grow up around. They have completely different methods of being, right? And of course, it's important for us to come together with people that hold the very same or very, very similar values, have the same character traits, have the same principles and morals and values and ethics and so forth, right? Very important to be with people, for me anyways, to be in friendships with people, and even in community with people, even in fellowship with people that are very secure, that respect themselves, that have a good relationship with themselves. And I promise you, if you give a person a chance enough when you're getting to know them, you will be able to see all of those things. If you give yourself a chance to let a person show their character, not their personality, I'm talking about their character because those are two different things, they will show themselves to you. You just have to give it time, and you just have to be intentional also. Give yourself a chance to test a person's character traits. See if this is a compassionate and gentle and kind and tolerant person. See if this is a respectful person. See if this is a nurturing person. You know what I mean? So what is really, really important is to obviously be in relationship and community with people that are similar. But even then, we are human, we will irritate each other, we will step on one another's toes, we are going to have different views, opposing views, we're going to have different ways of seeing things and doing things. Even the best of people will have their differences, and it's important to communicate, because communication is really, for me, one of the most important parts of laying down a foundation of a relationship. And of course, in communicating, then the other person should be able to receive it. It's also about them and how they are processing it, how they are receiving it, and what they are choosing to do with that information. But then again, if you are in relationship with someone who respects themselves, they respect you, they have a good relationship with themselves, and they just have it in them to be open and honest, and they're very committed to building that relationship with you, then it's not going to be received poorly when you say, you stepped on my toes and I didn't appreciate it. they're not going to gaslight you. They won't humiliate you, and they won't use it against you at some later stage in some plot of vengeance. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, I realized that I really battled with communication. And again, that's something that came from way back when in my childhood that I needed to dig deeper on and realize where it came from. And it is something I'm now working on. But what it comes down to is that was on me. No one could have read my mind. I suppressed certain things because people pleasing, for one. I spoke about it in a previous episode that I'm a recovering people pleaser, and having for a very long time this deep desire and longing to be loved, heard, and seen for a long time in my life, and I mean long. I have taken so much mistreatment and entertained many things because of this deep, deep, deep wound. Entertained many things that I shouldn't have. This eventually manifested into me being a bad communicator of any form of discomfort or discontentment I felt. Give me the good feelings though. I find it easy to express the good feelings, and I will express them to the ends of the earth. Thank you, that made me feel so loved, that made me feel so cared for. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the things that you are doing in my life. Thank you for playing the role that you have. All of that stuff. I'll even talk about how happy I am, how excited I am. But when it comes to the less amazing, exciting feelings, it has always been something that I've struggled with. And now I'm very intentional on working on that and on reminding myself that there's nothing wrong with feeling the bad feelings. There isn't anything wrong. Again, very much, very much important to realize when there is something that you are doing wrong, or there is something that is needing to be addressed within you. So, yeah, it's really not realistic to not communicate all of the feelings and all of the things that you are concerned about. And I realized that giving myself a chance has shown me that communicating all of my feelings is something that I need to really focus on all the time. And for me to not repeat that in future friendships or romantic relationship, it is my responsibility to work on it. No one else's but mine. You know what I'm saying? Very, very, very important. Something else about me is that I love to love. One thing I'm gonna do is love you. Whether you are a friend or romantic partner, I love it. I love it when love is in the room. But in the past, I had absolutely no boundaries because people pleasing again, obviously, but also because I was trying to be a fixer. I remember during a therapy session, the therapist said to me that I have mirrored myself a lot when in relationships with people. I look at their pain and I see mine and want to care for them and heal them in ways I have not been cared for. She also said, I want to protect my loved ones from going through the feelings of rejection and not being seen, heard, or loved like I have experienced. Now, there is nothing wrong with being loving, kind, gentle, and supportive. It is so important to give those things to the people you care about. The thing with me was that I had no limits, and I speak in the past because this new girl that I'm very proud of, that is trying so hard, is really working on this. I was realizing that being that way, being in that state of mind, was firstly me standing in lack, right? Because I was sacrificing my mental, emotional, physical, and financial well-being in the name of caring for the people in my life. So it was coming from a place of lack. It was almost as if I felt like I needed to fight very hard and give my all, empty my entire being out, so that people would not leave me, so that people would be pleased with me, so that people would love me more. Like, here's this for me to show you how devoted I am to you. And here's this so that you won't leave me. And can you just see already that that's not healthy? That is not healthy at all. And one thing I did was justify to myself every single time I did that. But it just wasn't right. It wasn't working. It was draining me. It was. And the person that I'm working on becoming right now, or that I am becoming right now, she is not doing things from a place of fear, but from a place of being really secure and doing things because she wants to and not because she feels like someone will walk out of her life. I said it in a previous episode, if you're going to walk out of my life because of I haven't shown up, because of I'm not overextending myself, because I am saying to you I don't have the capacity to be there for you right now, then you can leave, because then you shouldn't be in my life in the first place. Relationships are not a competition. We need to be supportive and considerate of one another, and as long as I'm communicating and I'm speaking and I'm saying this is my reality right now, then you should not be using that against me, because I think that that is using it against someone when you are gaslighting or manipulating them for not being able to do something for you, you know? I'm really trying to be more mindful that I don't take on more than I can actually handle, because how am I going to do anything if my cup is empty or if it's on reserve? I got to take care of myself. I've got to make sure that I'm good so that I can be good and show up for the people that are in my life. The therapist ended up saying that I must learn to be more intentional about myself and live more intentionally. So to ask myself, am I doing this out of love or fear? Can I afford to do this, whether it is mental, emotional, physical, or financial affordability? And if not, then that is absolutely okay. It's fine. So what I'm working on now is boundaries and reworking and repairing my relationship with myself, reparenting my inner child, because the people pleasing element comes from childhood trauma. So in this season of my life, I am needing to relearn healthier patterns that will aid in making sure that when I build new relationships, or in the current relationships that I am in, I have strong boundaries. I have those standards of how I want to be treated and how I need to be treated and loved. And I just need to be very honest about where I'm at, and I need to be very honest about how much I can give, and I must not be ashamed to show up as my full self. I know now more than ever that when you are in a healthy, functional, pure relationship with yourself and the people you are in relations with, that will not stop them from loving you just because you are not in a good enough space to show up, right? I am no longer in the business of punishing myself or pushing myself harder when I'm not in a position to push harder. I am learning to listen to my mind. I'm learning to listen to my body. I'm learning to take my relationship with myself very seriously. I'm learning not to gaslight myself, not to manipulate myself, not to feel guilty, not to feel the need to put myself last and other people first. That is one way to hate yourself and then end up in relationships where the pattern is you are constantly sacrificing yourself for other people. You are just ending up in relationships that are very unhealthy. In healthy relationships, you will not be gaslit or manipulated or given the cold shoulder just because you are asserting your boundaries. In healthy, loving, and functional relationships, the love is not revoked just because you are in the middle of an argument or when you are standing up for yourself. In healthy and functional relationships, you will feel safe enough to address issues and know that it will be you and that person, or you and those people against the problem, and not you guys against each other. In a healthy and functional relationship or relationships, you are not going to constantly feel like you are in survival mode, okay? This is also why we need to be intentional about working on ourselves, working through the traumas, working through the hard stuff so that we are not stuck going in the same toxic cycles, attracting people that are not good for the mental, emotional, or physical, because dysfunction will cause weight loss and it will have you breaking out, and you will be looking unhealthy as much as you would be feeling unhealthy, because how you're feeling inside will show itself on the outside. Ending up in toxic situations over and over and over again is inevitable when you are not willing to work, when you are not willing to stop and give yourself some time. And I just want to speak about giving yourself time It's so important, especially when you have just been in a constant cycle or on a hamster wheel of getting into a relationship and then having to get out of it and then getting into another one. So you are just constantly getting into relationships. I'm talking friendship, I'm talking romantic relationships, because sometimes we need to stop. A lot of the times we just need to stop. Just give it a break. Stop running. Stop trying to hide. You need to show up in the face of your issues. Look them in the eye on your own sometimes. I don't want to dismiss the importance of support. Please, it mustn't sound like I'm saying you should cut people off or just isolate everyone. But when you are moving out of a relationship and you're picking up certain things about yourself, it's not an opportunity for you to now quickly run into another one to silence whatever it is that you have picked up. It is actually an opportunity for you to say, you know what, I just need a bit of a break. I'm going to lean on my friends. I'm going to lean on the friends that I have in my life. I'm going to lean on my family. And if you don't particularly have strong relations on friendship or family side, you could just say, I'm going to pray. I'm just going to pray, and I'm going to ask God to lead me in this situation, which is what should happen either way. But if you are someone that needs extra support and reinforcement through prayer, then just lean on that. Lean on prayer. And I believe that God just loves to work in the most mysterious and incredible ways. The more you pray about it, the more support you will have. You will just look around you and you'll see that you are having people that are coming into your life, sometimes complete strangers, and they're wanting to hold you up, and they're wanting to show you love, and they're wanting to support you. We often want to find a way to put the blame on others, right? But then what? Which is what I had to ask myself all the time. I am spending blaming someone else for all these things. It's time I could be spending acknowledging and figuring out a way forward. And as uncomfortable and difficult that is, it needs to be done. Because otherwise, what am I doing? I speak of growing and healing and learning, but then that means I'm only doing it selectively. If I do it sometimes and when it comes to certain situations, and then all the other times I'm not doing it. It's called selectively working on yourself. That's what I believe it is. The truth of it is you cannot blame everyone else forever. You've got to take the responsibility for you, for your patterns, for your complacency, for your unsatisfaction. Don't be the person that is always the victim and is always the one having people walk away and then wanting to blame them. Then you're the common denominator, not everyone you're pointing fingers at. If you don't do anything about it, the situation is going to stay the same. And I promise you, there is something you can do about it. You must just want to do something bad enough. You need to want it. You really do need to want it. The other day, my mom was saying, yeah, the bad things have happened. Yeah, people have experienced hardships and trauma. Life has been unfair and cruel, and no one is dismissing that and no one is disputing that. But for how long is the childhood trauma, your past, and your difficulties, for how long are they going to be the reason why you make the kind of decisions that you make, the reason why you feel the emptiness and the stagnancy? For how long are you going to blame your attitude, your behavior, your decision making on the things that have happened to you in the past? For how long will it be feasible and sustainable? So that's exactly what we should be asking ourselves. For how long is this going to work? For how long is this going to be something that I can use as a crutch to say, yeah, I behave this way, or I act this way, or I am this way because of the things I've experienced? It's awful. It's awful to go through trauma. It's awful to go through pain. It's awful to go through hardships. It's terrible to constantly have your heart broken by family members, by people who you are meant to trust. It is all terrible. But you're grown now, and this is your life, and you are going to be the one stuck living it. And you don't want to feel stuck. You don't want to feel stagnant. And that's exactly what will happen. That is exactly what will happen. You might acquire the material. You might acquire, this is going to sound very cheesy, you might acquire the status, the power, the accessibility. But when the wounds are unhealed, they are still unhealed. And there is absolutely no way to fill an unhealed wound up with money. It doesn't work that way. We need to disinfect our wounds. We need to acknowledge that they exist in the first place and then work on disinfecting them and healing them. So, yeah, do something, want to do something about all of the things that you are feeling, this pain and this anger, this bitterness and this frustration. Please want to do something about it. Yeah, guys, that's where we are ending this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing all about my experiences, about where I have been before, where I currently am, somewhat talking about that, and how much hope there is on the other side of dealing with the demons that have been chasing you all your life. The pain and the suffering and the frustration. Yeah. You can listen to A Cupful on all listening platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So please tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to give it a listen. If you enjoyed this episode, don't be shy. Go on ahead and follow A Cupful on the socials so that you can stay up to date with episodes when episodes come out, which is every Wednesday. The Instagram handle is at @a_cupful, and the TikTok handle is at @acupfulpod, and that is a good place if you're trying to put someone onto the podcast. You just refer them to that so that they can give it a listen, like a little snippets, usually a minute, sometimes 30 seconds, sometimes 50 seconds. Then they can decide whether it is their cup of tea, whether they're trying to frequent the podcast, listen to it every chance they get. Have a lovely remainder of this week. Rest when you need to, work when you need to, be kind to yourself and others. Don't waste your own time, and most importantly, keep doing the things that fill your cup.